How long have you wanted to write that book? Well, stick around while I take you through the steps of completing your first masterpiece next on Views and Vibes. We all have at least one book in us. You know you do. You can feel it in the pit of your stomach. A story just dying to be birthed. The seed is there, and it's in you. And I brought a bunch of my author friends here today just to show you how to bear that fruit. She is the author of the novel, When I'm Loving You, Miss K. Lowery Moore. He is the author of several nonfiction titles, including his latest, How to Get Beautiful Women and Everything Else You Want from Life, Mr. Matthew C. Horne. And please help me welcome one of the best editors in the world, one of my editors, and the author of The Tides That Bind, Ms. Erica Kennedy. Welcome to Views and Vibes, my friends. So happy to have you guys here to help us help other people get their books into print. I want to begin by talking about what are the first steps that you take? You know, what inspires you to begin your writing process? Let's start with Ms. K.
I'm a big fan of romance, romance movies, and that's what initially inspired me to write my own romance novel, because I would like to see more African-American romance stories being told. Okay. So that's what inspired me. Okay.
And Matthew, for you as a nonfiction author, you know, what caught your eye that said, okay, I want to actually walk in this kind of path?
Well, I was just playing basketball in college, and people just kept telling me I had a gift in my speech classes to help people to get to where they want to be in life. And I received the book contract in my last semester back in 2005, and just took it from there. Just wanted to see people create change in their life.
So you being inspiration inspired you too?
Exactly.
How about you, Erica? Where did your inspiration come from?
Me? Reading a good book. Okay. It may sound cliche, but.
So you were probably inspired by something you read of mine, and that.
Of course,
thank you. That I'm, you know, taking all the credit for it.
Yeah, of course. Reading a good book, it inspires you to get to it.
Right. So what's the next step you take after that? So you've been inspired by something, you know, whether it's seeing something on TV or, you know, whatever your experience is. What do you do from there? How do you take that next step?
Just gotta jump in.
Yeah, I just free write. Whatever story that I'm feeling, something funny may happen while I'm out on a date. Or me and my girlfriends may have a conversation that strike up something. I just free write.
So like, if it hits you that day, are you sitting down writing that night?
Yes.
Okay. All right. How about you, Matthew?
Yeah, you don't want to let that moment of inspiration pass you. It's a moment, you know, the windows open and they close. So get your outline out, you know, get your title going, get your outline going, and while you have the inspiration, just go ahead and write. You know.
Do you guys journal at all? Do you do any journaling?
I keep several.
Okay.
I'm not a big journaler, but I think with most writers, you start writing in your head before you ever sit down, put pen to paper.
Right. And how do you go about doing
all day long?
I know for me, I know one of my books, Crystal Sears, I would drive back and forth. Back in 2004, I was driving back and forth between here and Albany, New York. I made 15 trips that year, and it's a 5.5-hour drive. And the entire time, I'm imagining the story. I'm just writing it. I mean, I've written the entire story in my head. I know exactly where I wanted to go. When I started writing it, it took a different direction. But I had a chance to really build the characters up. You know, they became real people to me. So when I sat down to write, they were there already. You know, what do you do as you're moving past that? After you've already, you know, you have the story in your head, you know where you want to go. Where do you go from there? I mean, do you sit down and just start, like, do you sit down and start writing the actual story, or do you plan out a little bit more?
I just start writing the actual story.
Okay. And so whatever comes to you.
Right. And I'm not even writing in any format because, you know, it's fiction. I have a page that I call deleted scenes, just like in the movies, because I may write something and then read it later and say, what was I thinking?
Right, just didn't fit.
But I don't delete it because I may can use it for a later story.
Right, right.
I think of scenarios because I write romance. You know, romance is one of those things you really got to feel it. So I have moments. I even set the mood for myself. Right. The candles, the music. Okay. Music inspires me a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Any kind of music in particular?
I'm a big fan of old school slow jams.
Okay.
So I put on the slow jams and just write. Think of a scene, especially with my married couple. So I'm really putting myself in the position of that wife.
Right.
And either what I would want my husband to do for me or what I would like to do for him. And that's how I create the scenes.
Now, how does that differ for you, Matthew, writing nonfiction? Is it all just free-flowing, or do you actually sit down and plan everything out?
My only plan is my outlines. I get a title, then I do a very detailed outline, and that way the book writes itself. Just like over the summer, I wrote 2 books back-to-back, Choices and How to Get Beautiful Women, and I literally just locked myself in my house for the entire summer, and 4 weeks later, I had 2 books written.
And I have to say, as long as I've known Matthew, it's probably been about, what, 3 years now?
Nah, it's been about 7.
No, it hasn't been that long.
Since 2006, man.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. He started off, you wrote a...
co-authored the book.
Right, you co-authored the book. But since then, he's just been going, like, nonstop. And I'm very proud to see you do that at the same time. I haven't written anything in a little while. But, it's good that you're continuing to go with that,
well,
man.
you're an inspiration to me always, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. You're an inspiration to me, too, man. Trying to keep up with you. Now, in terms of beyond the inspiration, beyond the first stages, where do you look to take your characters? Is it just taking them in a particular direction, or do you really let your characters live their own life? How does that come to you?
When you start writing, I found that the characters begin writing their own story. And if you fight against it, it will result in a messy product.
Right.
So I tell people who are beginning to write, let them show you where they want to go. And they do. They become your friends. They kind of hang with you all day.
Right.
And much like Hayes said, music inspires me in the characters that I create. I'm a big fan of reading ensemble casts and writing them. Okay. You have multiple characters, and with The Ties That Bind, I listened to a different genre of music for every character when I was writing. So it kind of helped me get to know them a little better and helped with the story development. But let your characters show you where they want to go.
Is it hard to let the characters become their own people, or do you feel this need to want to control them?
You can want to control them, but it doesn't happen. It's like teaching a baby how to walk. You can kind of script them out, but once you let them go, they write themselves pretty much.
Okay, we're saying that you actually create a mood for yourself when you're writing something. How about creating a scene? How do you go about actually creating a scene for your characters to live?
Well, for me, because I'm also a poet, that setting the scene it comes kind of natural. I just vision. I had 3 different main characters, and I just vision their lives separately and what they've been through. And it just, like Erica said, it just goes from there. I may start out with saying, okay, I want this character to live here, but then it may take a different direction. But it's funny because once you start writing, it just develops. Right. And I try to make sure that each character has its own issues and separate lives, just like real people. Right, so when people read your story, they feel like they know these women and they can identify with what they're going through and things like that. So it's not like, for my stories, it's not like you reading a book and you saying, who lives like this, or who is this person? If you would think it's somebody that you went to school with or that you've dated. So I try to keep them as real as possible, but I also like to have real life issues to disrupt their love. And that's pretty much the angle that I like to write from. When things happen in your relationship, how do you move past it to keep that love strong?
Right. And Matthew, you don't do character-based writing at this point. Most of your stuff comes from your own experiences, your own perspective. How do you develop that out? How do you get the voices out of your head about what you've experienced and get those written down on paper?
Well, it all just comes out in the outline. I do, bullet points for each chapter, and that way it's just very organized. And I can attest to what these 2 beautiful women are talking about on set. Sometimes your writing just goes in a completely different direction than you thought it would, and you can't fight it. I mean, that's a sort of a spiritual inspiration. That's your gift to the world, and you just want to give it in its most pure form. And that's what I do in my writing. I just let it flow and just try to bless people.
And so, say in your last book, how to get beautiful women?
Yeah, and everything else you want from life.
Right. Where did that come from? How did you lay that outline out?
Well, what I did was I wanted to do something different. You know, being in my late 20s now, I wanted to grow as a writer, and I've done my share of dating, and just wanted. But as a motivational speaker, my antennas are always up. So even though I was just doing something as natural as dating, I was learning a lot at the same time.
You're picking up a lot of things from other people, right?
Exactly, and just seeing how extremely beautiful women think. I was able to kind of capture and quantify their thoughts, and just show the man how to be a captivating man, putting her in an unfamiliar position. And so with that, it was just pure experience and just a desire to really show men not just how to get beautiful women, but how to get everything else that they want from life. Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Good job, you guys. Welcome back to Views and Vibes, you guys. We are in the middle of a discussion about helping you write your first book in 2013. And guys, in this segment, I wanted to look more at the actual physical writing process. It's hard. A lot of people say it's hard for me to sit down and write. What's the kind of schedule I should keep? What do you think? How do you actually sit down and get to writing and maintain that level of penmanship?
It's not easy. It takes a lot of discipline because there are a zillion other things you have to do, you could be doing, you want to do, but if you do not force yourself to sit in that chair, it will not get done. So you kind of have to go with your rhythm, your flow, figure out what's the best time of day for you to write and kind of stick to that. And kind of trick yourself. I heard them say kind of reward yourself, punish yourself, make yourself write that chapter and say, well, I'm not going to do this until this chapter's done. I'm not going to eat until I get 10 pages out. Don't starve yourself now. Don't starve yourself.
Don't pass out.
But, you can make bigger goals. Once I get 5 chapters under my belt, I'm going to treat myself to a spa day. So you kind of got to trick yourself. It's discipline, but whatever you can do to motivate yourself, because it can be a lonely profession. It's just you. It's your pen and paper or your laptop, and that's it. You got to be your own cheerleader, motivate yourself, your own manager, everything. So,
Matthew, what about you? Because you put out so many different products that, over such a short period of time. How do you keep yourself going?
Well, my atmosphere is my greatest asset. I'm very conscious of the atmosphere I need to write and finish my books. My first book, The Universe is Inviting You In, it was craziness going on around me. I was dealing with too much stuff, and I eventually finished it, but I learned a valuable lesson. So,
which was what?
You have to guard your atmosphere, and when something comes in your atmosphere when you're writing a book, it has to come in on your terms. And so that's why I'm able to write my books in 2 weeks, because I just shut myself off from the material world and focus in on what I have to do, and I don't come off the air until the book is finished.
Well, describe your atmosphere. What kind of atmosphere do you find yourself in to do that?
Just peace and solitude.
Is it like a particular place though? Are you at home? Are you like at a cafe?
I am at home. Just at home, just locking myself away and just not leaving. I mean, you have to leave, from time to time, just to kind of clear your head. I mean, I'm still in my 20s. I'm gonna come out for air, but at the end of the day, you lock yourself at that computer and don't talk to too many people and just stay in your zone until you're finished.
Okay. What about you, Kay?
I guess it's about the same as Erica and Matthew. What I do is I did a chapter a day. Thing for myself with my first book. I said that I was going to write a chapter a day. I didn't worry about the order. I didn't worry about the format. Today I was Natasha. I said I'm going to be Natasha and I'm going to handle the situation. Tomorrow I'm going to be Diane. I mean, I really felt like I was multiple people. But the thing is to set goals, small, whether it's say I'm going to write 1,500 words a day, a chapter a day, but you have to set goals and you have to stick to it. Like I said, set a schedule, reward yourself. Once my manuscript was done, I threw a party. Because see, people don't understand that was a huge accomplishment. My second novel is like 90,000 words. So that was a huge accomplishment. So once I sent it off to the editor, we partied. I wanted to celebrate that step because I don't think that we celebrate each step of our accomplishments enough. So that was the way I rewarded myself.
I know for me, being a nonfiction writer and a fiction writer, the process is so different. I know when I did my It's Just a Damn Day, which is nonfiction, I set out a serious schedule, and so over 5 weeks, I wrote every single day. I made sure I had, you know, a number of pages or a section of a chapter I wanted to finish every single day, and I got through it. But with the creative writing, you know, it had to be more free-flowing. It's almost like you can organize as much as you want to, but it's almost like you have to be more inspired. You know, it has to be a different spirit that comes through you because you're breathing life into other characters. Whereas when you're doing nonfiction writing, it's more coming from your perspective, so it's like it's already in your head. But once you sit down, I know I have a hard time getting to that point where I just want to sit down and write, especially with fiction. But once I'm there, I'm just going. It's free flowing. What goes through your head when you actually sit down? You're in front of that laptop. You're in front of, you know, you have that pen in your hand and you have that little piece of paper. What's going through your head at that time? Are you visualizing the story? Is there something else going on? What are you really thinking about at that time?
I don't know who said it earlier, but I actually come up with stories before I'm at the computer. I could be on the subway and something could strike me, and I'm trying to hold it in my head till I get to the computer. So once I get there, it really just flows. And that's why I think that when you're passionate about your craft, it's not work. It just flows. And I've never had a writer's block, ever. I may have had, well, my mind is working too much, but I've never felt like I don't have anything to write about. I haven't approached that point yet.
That's good. That's good. What about you, Matthew?
Well, what really goes through my mind is my bullet points. You know, that's how I'm very systematic and linear in the way that I write. So it's just about the creativity. Whatever that point was that I put on that paper is just allowing that to just expound. And like you said, with nonfiction writing, it's just coming from within anyway, within yourself. So I just let it flow. That's all I really do. You know.
Eric, I can tell there's always something in your mind anyway. So, you know, what's in your mind at that point?
I actually have to see it.
Really?
I'm very visual.
Okay.
So even with The Tides That Bind, I had a lot of people ask me, has this been turned into a movie? Or because I'm a great lover of movies. So I have to actually see it. And that's kind of the process for me. But wanted to piggyback off of something Kay said too. When it's flowing, get the ideas out. A lot of people keep a notepad and pencil with them, but on the
or a tape recorder, or even like talking to your telephone now. But on the other hand,
do not force the flow. It will show. You put down the T-shirt. Do not force the flow. It will show. If you got to get up, take a walk, take a break, but don't force it because it should flow. It should feel good, and it's going to come across on the page what you're feeling. If there was that anxiety and you was forcing the story, readers will pick up on that.
Now, what about, you know, when you're in the middle of writing, you're in the middle of writing a book and you have a good flow going and you're in bed, do you ever wake up with more ideas of where you want things to go? And do you force yourself to get up and continue writing?
That's when the importance of having the notebook and the pencil and the pen next to the bed comes in handy. You can get ideas at any time, anywhere, and when you get them, jot them down. You know, people say that about dreams in the middle of the night. If you want to remember them when you wake up, write it down, go back to sleep. Do the same with your story.
And have you ever written anything, or not written anything down, but you had a great idea and then did you forget it?
I haven't yet. It may not have. I may not have written it the way I thought it, but what I do is I write down a scenario, and then just go back and fill it in later. You know, like when I develop my characters, I may say Diane met Nelson at the bar, and then I can just go back later. So whatever idea I may have had at first, it can go in a different direction because that's fine, because that's how life is. There's been how many times where you say, okay, I'm gonna go to the mall, and then something comes up and then you end up going somewhere else. I mean, you should be able to be flexible with your characters. And then the thing about fiction, especially your topics, your subjects are emotional, and I'm actually going through emotions. So if I'm writing about a character who suffered a loss of a child, I now have to go through that emotion.
And that comes out on the page. I know I've, not to seem all soft and sensitive, but I've actually broken down crying. You know, when I'm writing, it seems like, oh my gosh, is that really happening to her? Because you know, you get really emotionally involved with it. But we're gonna continue this conversation when we come back from the next break. We'll see you in a minute, okay? welcome back to Views and Vibes, everyone. We are talking about getting you to write that book in 2013. And I want to talk about, you know, as we're closing the show out, I want to talk about closing out your book. I meet people all the time who say, and this is why I wanted to do the show, I want to write a book, I want to write a book. And then I meet other people who say, you know, I've been working on a book for years, and I have like 2,000 pages. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of pages for a book. But they don't know how to end their stories. When it comes time for you to kind of end your book, how do you do it? How do you end that story for those people that you've invested so much time and energy into? How do you close it out?
Well, I would say definitely, well, the process of closing it out, definitely create the outline. Mm-hmm. I call it the dreaded outline. It reminds me of grade school. You hate to do it, you have to do it. So you kind of have a direction for your characters to go, and you know how the story's going to end. Right. As far as the essence of letting the characters go, you never let them go. Right. They're always
still part of you.
Somewhere, yeah. Hence how sequels are born.
Yes, I'm working on a sequel now because I want to write for film. That's what I'm thinking. I'm always thinking, how can I build on this story? So I try to create characters that can just grow with me. Right. So with my first book, When I'm Loving You, I actually left a cliffhanger. People weren't too happy, but of course now they're anxious for the sequel that it will be out this summer. And it's just, like I said, I put myself in the mind of a movie. Like when you, because I love movies. Like Erica said, I love movies. So when you're watching a movie and you know how it just ends, and you're like, oh no, they didn't do that. That's how I like. That's how I like to leave you in case I want to leave room for another book.
Right, of course, of course. And how about you, Matthew? You know, when do you know that you've said enough in your book?
Well, you know, first of all, the outline. It definitely helps. And,
so you stick really strictly to that outline?
That's how the book writes itself. Okay. If you can outline your book the right way, you're done. And you just know in that last chapter when you said all you can say. And that's it. I tell my reader, you have brilliance, genius, and greatness within you. And I thank God for the gift to write. And then I'm done.
Right, right. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's interesting because for a long time, I will always say I don't do outlines, but in essence, I do. I free write first, and then I go back and organize my thoughts.
Right, right.
And I find myself sometimes cutting and pasting, you know, chapters around. So the outline, it does help to kind of decide where am I going with this and how would I like to see my characters in.
And you talk a lot about, you know, free writing. What about self-editing? I really meet people all the time who have a hard time moving forward because they're always going back, changing things. And you being the supreme editor that you are, you know, what would you suggest to writers who are constantly editing their stuff as a writer?
You would never finish if you were constantly editing while you're writing, because that urge to rewrite it, you'll never get past page one. You always can make it better. Oh, I can make it better. I can make it better. Get it done. There are editors out there. Get it out. Right. There are editors out there. That's their job, to take what you finished and clean it up. And even the best editors in the world, with me being a writer, I don't like to edit my own stuff.
Right. Oh,
you become too close to it.
Exactly.
And after a while,
you know what it's supposed to say. You know what it's supposed to say, and not as opposed to what's actually there. Right.
What's supposed to be there, not what's really there. Right. But that rewriting is what keeps a lot of people stuck with not completing their books. So just write, get it out, clean it up when you finish.
Like you said, let your editor clean it up. Right. My first round of writing, I don't worry about the subject-verb agreement, any of that, because I'm getting ready to pay somebody.
What's that?
And then once you get the corrections back, then you have a chance to look at what they've done. But what a lot of people don't do, and it depends on how you're writing. I take my book through several rounds of editing, because one editor may be checking for grammar and spelling. The other editor is talking, you know, trying to catch the story flow, because there's nothing worse than to find a hole in your story. Because if you find a hole, then you got to go back and try to fix it. Right.
And I tell me, even though Erica's a fantastic editor, I also have two other editors too, you know, because your editor may not find everything. And like you said, they may be looking for different things, you know, whether it's grammar or more content. Do you find yourself, Matthew, doing a lot of editing while you're writing, or do you save it for the end too?
I just save it for the end. And you know, after I finish writing my book, I'll look it over a few times. I actually maybe go to Staples and get a document unedited, you know, one of those Hollywood script looking things, and go through it. if you have some people you trust, make sure you trust them. You can kind of give it to them, because what happens if they're going to offer suggestions to your manuscript. And just like an official editor, you can accept or reject their changes. You always want to hand the book over to the editor in the best condition, because the better the condition, the less money you're going to have to pay.
Right.
If you need like a total rewrite, I mean, you're going to pay for it. But if you need something like a light copy edit, then you know you'll pay little or nothing for it.
And the one thing I feel like I want to let people know about writing is that it is an art. You know, you can't just say, I want to write a book and just sit down and start writing. You need to practice, like any other instrument. Like if you're learning how to play the saxophone, you're not just going to pick up the saxophone and say, okay, I'm going to play, you know, some John Coltrane. That's not going to work. You know, you actually have to sit down and practice. When you write, or when you're not writing, you know, a book, are you still writing? Are you still practicing the art of writing? I'm
actually starting a class. I took a technical writing class because the technical writing kind of helped me with the more structured, the way sentences is supposed to, you know, be written. Because being a creative writer, I just want to write and say how I want to say it, but there should be still a formula. And I'm actually getting ready to take a proofreading class start next week.
Right. So you're always on.
So you gotta keep, because there's things that I just don't remember.
Right.
I just don't remember.
There's workshops. Right. And read.
Yeah.
Read. People that want to sing.
Read.
And this one thing that bothers me is to meet somebody who want to write, and then they say they don't read books.
Yeah.
How are you going to be an author? How you want to be a writer and you don't read?
Right, right. Guys, we have to actually go. I'm so happy that you were able to sit here with me. I would like to thank my friends Kay Lowery Moore, Erica Kennedy, and Matthew C. Horne for joining us today. You can find out more about my guests by going to our website, viewsandvibes.com. Until next time, I'm Tariiq Omari Walton, and this has been Views and Vibes.